Welcome to the Thrive Today podcast. We are a platform for women who lead and believe. I'm your host, Natalie Born, and today we are sitting down with our founder of Thrive Today, Colleen Rouse. Welcome, welcome.
Good to see you.
You too. Well, I am so excited for our conversation today. You have been talking to us on our coaching calls about some pretty cool content, and we thought we can't just leave it on that call. We're going to bring a little bit of that to give, not only give people a taste of our coaching calls, but also help kind of us think about some of these topics. And so I love this first question. It's one of my favorite topics to talk about, which is meetings. And so have you ever been in a meeting where everyone seemed like they were agreeing with your idea, felt like we were just, we're meshing, we're on the same page, yes, only to discover later that something happened, like something unraveled outside of that meeting, and now we're almost like nowhere. It kind of fell through the cracks. So let's talk about what happened, and then how do you help move forward when something like that happens in a meeting?
Well, and this happens a lot more than leaders realize, because what we usually do then is in our thought process as we're, just kind of processing through the disappointment, the shock or whatever. And either we're saying, I didn't do a good enough job convincing. Yes. My presentation was lacking, or they weren't honest with me. Like we go to these sort of extremes, yes, but actually it's a lot more complex than that. And, when you think about people who purchase high ticket items, like my husband back in the day worked for a beautiful furniture company. He was one of the highest performing salesmen, but he was frustrated because he'd have a high close rate. But then something would happen. The client would change their mind afterwards. And he was frustrated with this continuing to happen because here he is pouring all this effort into this. And so I think we have to understand something about human behavior. And certainly, the FTC understands it because they have something called the cooling off rule. And it gives you a certain amount of time to be able to get out of the sale that you signed on the dotted line for. And why is that? Because under pressure, people will say things in the moment under pressure, and then later on, when they're distanced from that pressure, they begin to process and realize this isn't what I want. Wow. So if it happens in sales, it's going to happen in leadership. Yeah. And this is super important because here's what I learned, okay? Agreement is not buy-in.
Yes.
And people can agree with you externally, but never be committed internally.
Wow.
And so we have to learn the difference between compliance, agreement, and buy-in.
Yeah. So let's walk through those. I mean, I think those are really interesting. You said compliance, agreement, and buy-in. And obviously, I think what we all want is buy-in, but I think we don't realize sometimes we think we're getting false buy-in.
Yeah.
But we're actually maybe just getting in the moment agreement, or we're getting in the moment compliance. And so let's talk through those a little bit and unpack them.
So that's the first level, is compliance, where you're sitting at the table, you're having the discussion with your team, whatever, and the reactions you're getting, like, okay, fine. And, they're looking at their watch, right? Whatever you think. And they're not really giving you an idea, because people comply because they want to end the meeting, or the meeting is coming to an end and they're hungry, and they just don't want conflict, or they're just like, okay, this is how I support you. You're the boss. So they're not even attached. They're just kind of allowing this thing to float around. So that's compliance. That's the first level. The second level is agreement. Now, this sounds a lot better because at this point, you can tell by their responses that they're at least thinking about your idea, that it has some merit with them, and they can say, yeah, I can see why you're saying that, or that makes sense. Now, that's progress, but we aren't there yet. And so we have to be patient.
Yes.
Because the next step is worth investing the time in. And that's the third level, which is buy-in. And that's when you see even posture changing.
Yes.
I can see how that will work.
Mm-hmm.
Because at this point, I'm assuming you've given them the why behind the what. Mm-hmm. And so now they're starting to internalize your why. Why as far as the heart reason behind it, why as far as the rational reason behind it. It's going to make us profits. It's going to win us more souls. And that you get to buy in when people are offering up their participation. I want to make this happen. I can see how this works. I understand why this matters.
Yeah.
Those are the kinds of responses that you can't really elicit. You can't pressure. You need to let it simmer, let it get distilled down to that. Because here's the thing, the goal of leadership isn't simply to gain agreement. It is to lead people. And we're leading them from compliance to commitment. Okay? Because commitment, that's at the point where there's action.
Yeah. So I wonder, what are some signs maybe as someone is sitting in the room and they're feeling that compliance of like, yep, let's just get this over with so we can leave. What are some ways that you move people out of compliance into maybe taking even a little bit more of an active role in the meeting and not just being someone that's sitting there nodding their head, but then they're going to leave and do whatever they want.
Yes. Well, and I think this is where, we need to read the room. We need to look at body language. We need to look at who's sitting back in their seat, who's leaning forward, who's engaged. Yes. And so, you go for the low-hanging fruit. Who's the person that you can tell is engaged? Who is nodding their head? Who is giving you some sort of connection? Yes. Then you can engage them to the next step and say, okay, how does this land with you? What is it that you're thinking? Yeah. Because, sometimes I had to learn this at the table, sitting at a table with all male leaders. Yes. And I had to actually invite them to criticize my idea because they wanted to be respectful, the woman in the rooms, the pastor's wife. So I had to say, tell me how this is landing with you. And the way I framed the question was inviting something. Do you see any holes in this? I had to invite.
Yes. I love that because oftentimes we don't invite. Sometimes we are so selling our idea that all we can do is just see that once I get this out and this information out, everyone's going to buy in and we're going to be on the same page and here we go. And it's all a sales pitch.
It's a rush. Yeah.
Yes. Versus us saying, now let's collaborate with the room. Let's hear what everyone else thinks. Let's hear what challenge the idea. Where do you think this would fall flat? Where do you think this would fail? Where do you think this would win? I love that. So what helped you to get over this idea of selling and actually moving to thinking more about like a bigger perspective on it?
So this goes out to all the girls who are the eyes, who have the woo factor and all of that. Yep. Okay. I had to learn about this because that's me. High I, ID, right? Yep. So I thought it was my job to convince people because I had been in sales. I came from a sales background.
That's right.
Okay. So I'm bringing my background. My job is to sell you on my idea. And if I present the evidence, if I communicate it passionately, I considered it a win when I won the sale, right? And I brought that into
I can see it now.
The meeting.
I can see it now.
Alive and well. So I used to use my gift of persuasion. And I thought, this is a skill I have. And if I can use it to effectively persuade people to get on board, then we're ready to go. Yes. This was my goal. I didn't see anything wrong with it, but I was getting agreement without ownership. And Patrick Lencioni calls this artificial harmony. By the way, he has some amazing books about the dysfunctions of the team. Read it. I mean, I love that. This guy, you almost think it was written by a woman, but anyway, he gets it.
He's intuitive.
So, I mean, sometimes I would find, it's kind of like we're sitting at the table, the choir is all singing in harmony, and it sounds beautiful, and then everyone leaves and they forget the lyrics, singing off key. It's like everything just fell apart because there's no follow through. And so I'm asking the Lord, okay, I need you to help me with this. I need you to help me to understand what's going on here. Because you see, the resistance to our ideas is going to show up afterwards unless we bring it out at the table. It's going to show up in procrastination, lack of enthusiasm,
lack of ownership,
forgetfulness. Yes. Absolutely. So what looked like commitment was just compliance.
Wow. Well, and it's almost like people don't want to dissent.
They don't.
It's not like they want to dissent, but for some reason, there's something either in that moment or after the fact that makes them, like you said, wrap their head around it a little bigger, right? They're thinking about it a little more after the fact. And they're like, oh, wait a minute. We didn't talk about these things, or we didn't think about that stuff. And I almost see those too as our people who are internal processors, who may not be able to process the information as fast as it's coming at them. And so what they actually need is a little bit more time. I always tell my internal processors, ask for the agenda the day before so that you have time to show up to the meeting and actually contribute. Because a lot of times our internal processors are quiet because they're thinking everything inside. Our external processors, if they haven't said it out loud, it hasn't happened. So they're thinking out loud, right, as they're talking, forming their opinion. And I think this is really important because there's so many reasons that buy-in breaks down. And this is one of them. Like just the fact that I wasn't really ready to make a decision this big. And wow, we're really moving fast. And there's a lot going on here. And I didn't have time to think about it.
Well, and I think those of us with this high I thing, we have this ability to just really lay something out. We're passionate. And it's very easy for that particularly our individual process that way to be sitting back there and going, why am I not excited about this? They don't understand. It's like they want to get on board with your enthusiasm. They want to support you. And so they don't speak up because they haven't caught up with you.
That's right.
They don't speak up because they haven't caught up.
Yes.
And we need both. We need the people like myself. I'm going to say something and then my feet will hit the ground. The other people walk into the room differently. So we need to understand that because John Maxwell says this, leaders see first before others, and they see what others don't see. And we have to be aware of that because we have an expectation that everybody else sees this. So why aren't you giving me buy-in? So I had to understand that leadership wasn't about convincing people. It's about helping them see what I see.
Wow, that's good.
And it's also about there's one thing to be motivational and there is another thing to be manipulative.
Let's talk about that for a second because there's a big difference, right? I think that sometimes you said it earlier, hey, I have this gift. I have this gift of influence. I have this woo gift where I can walk in a room and it's funny because over the years, when you meet people with that gift, it draws you towards them and they know that. And so it's almost easy to say, okay, I'll just go in the room and get everyone really excited and have someone come out and play a pad in the background with some keys and we'll get this thing done. And you're like, well, hold on, because we've got to get that buy-in. And so I love that you were talking about this because there are those people who are so charismatic that in the moment, anyone will say yes. But then they have that buyer's remorse afterwards where they're like, oh, should I have said yes? And we didn't really think through this. So how do we help leaders who have that gifting to not move into manipulation with it, but to stay in that collaboration zone?
I think the awareness that you can venture into that unknowingly, unwittingly is first and foremost. And that I had to reframe this in my mind. Okay, I have the ability to sell, but I needed to just temper it. There's a time for tempering everything.
Yeah.
And so the high I, you're in a big room in front of thousands of people. You need to bring the energy to the platform. You're in a conference room, please dial it back.
Know your audience.
Fit the room, right? Make it appropriate. Yeah. But the difference is motive.
Yeah.
What's my motive here?
That's really good.
We have to be honest with ourselves. Is this about me? And because manipulation is thinking, how do I get my idea across? And motivation is, how do I help others see this? Yeah. And it's a completely different approach because of the motive.
Yeah. Well, I think about this going back to kind of a core idea of yours as well around knowing why you're in the room and not needing to suck the life out of the room, right? Like sometimes, we feel like we need something from the room we're in. And that actually sets us up to manipulate the room. So I think that that's honestly very important for us to think about that as leaders and understand, what is my motive walking into the room? What do I want? What do I not want? Being in touch with that before we walk in and present our idea. And even being honest, hey, you know what I would love for us to do? Get on board with this. But if you're seeing things that don't work out or don't make sense, tell me. Let's talk about it. Let's get into it. I think people need to know that we're willing to do
What is it that I don't know? Yeah. So here's what I arrived. I discovered this 3-part framework, and this is what I practice. Okay, so it's observation, validation, and solution. Okay, so observation is what you see. It's the problem, it's the opportunity, it's the risk, it's the pattern, whatever it is that you're trying to address. And where leaders go wrong is they assume others see it, right? Yes. So that's first of all. And so usually if we see something, we have a solution, we want to jump right to the solution.
We do.
And so the reason we don't have buy-in is because we're eliminating this middle step.
Yes.
And that is validation. Yeah. Validation is so important because this is where breakthrough happens. Mm-hmm. Okay. So instead of saying, here's my great idea, what do you think? We say, okay, here's my idea. I think it's great, but what am I missing?
Yes.
So phrasing it completely different. Now you're inviting people to speak into it. Okay. Now here's the thing that I learned. We're in this day. This is going to be helpful and liberating. We're in this day where a lot of leaders think, I have to be a consensus leader. I have to let everybody at the table give their opinion. No, you don't. Because you know what? People don't necessarily want consensus. They don't need consensus. What they need is clarity and the opportunity to be heard. So what makes it difficult as somebody who maybe doesn't want consensus is because that is exhausting and overwhelming.
Yes.
But it absolutely can be. So what you do is it's about clarity. It's about understanding what did you hear? Yeah. And then what do I need to hear? Yeah. So this exchange back and forth, you're still the leader. You can say at the end of the day, I've heard you, but my leaning is still towards this.
Yes.
And you don't, because otherwise you're just going to have delay in your decision if it's about consensus. So switch it. The priority is not consensus. It's clarity and being heard. That's how people feel involved, is even just the ability to be heard.
I like that. I think that's really important. And that's a new way of looking at it. And I'll say this, I don't necessarily love consensus either. I think that sometimes it waters down what we were actually trying to accomplish in the first place. And I feel like even consensus can be like putting together this Frankenstein thing, right? By the time it comes out the other end, you're like, what is this?
You think it's the composite thing and it ends up being Frankenstein. Yeah.
So I have a little bit of like a knee-jerk reaction that's not good when I hear the word consensus, because sometimes I feel like it seems like it pacifies the people in the room, but we end up with something that we didn't necessarily want or need.
Yes.
Because we were trying to listen to each and every voice and ensure that we did the right thing. I love collaboration because there's this little drawing that I did in one of my articles that was like 3 people in a room. Each one had a shape over their head. So one was like a triangle, one was a square, and then let's just say the other was a rectangle. And they said, I'm glad we all agree. And then when they actually put that on the board, they were like, oh, we don't agree at all. Okay. And then they started making something that actually made sense for what they were trying to accomplish. And to me, collaboration is not let's take an angle from each one of your things and make it work, but it's what is the shape that we're actually trying to build that's going to get us where we need to go. And that's the beauty of collaboration. So I think that there's a power in the questions that you're asking people so that they will think through, move past their like, oh my gosh, why are we changing, to what needs to be true to make this change come about.
Well, and I think you get there through asking the right questions, okay? Because here's the goal. This is what we need to understand. When people feel heard, that's when the walls start coming down. So that's when collaboration can begin, right? This is where trust increases, curiosity increases. So now we're moving towards a real solution mindset, okay? And collaboration increases. So I'm hearing you, and you as a leader have to ask the specific questions. I'm not asking you your opinion.
Yes.
Because your opinion is not the most valuable thing. Mm-hmm. Your research, your findings, your
knowledge.
That's what's valuable.
Yes.
So you have to be careful at the collaborative table. It's the kind of questions you ask. And if somebody throws out an opinion, I say, okay, I understand that's your opinion, but why do you feel so strongly about that?
Yeah.
And you're checking them and teaching them, because am I just being strong because it's true, or because I just want my opinion?
Yeah.
And the rest of the people in the room listening to this conversation back and forth feel safe and respected. And then they also know, I got to bring my A game.
Yeah.
This isn't about my opinion.
That's right.
So
That's good.
connection isn't separate from influence. In fact, connection creates that influence, okay? And it's only after we built that bridge, that connection, that we actually have the power to move to a solution.
Yeah.
So this is why the collaboration is so important. It takes more time, but you're going to get to the best solutions.
Yeah. Yeah, it does take more time. That's the part we have to build in, is the time to get to the right solution.
Absolutely. So
what final thoughts on this topic? I mean, this is such a great topic. This is very deep in terms of thinking about how we show up in a room, not just bringing the idea, but also bringing the right questions to ask the room to move them to the right solution by the end of the meeting.
So I think this whole thing about getting to collaboration, and I would suggest, again, read some of Patrick Lencioni's books. They're really about team building things. It's very, very relevant, helpful books. We've done them as a staff. Reading them together and discussing them is really powerful. But here's the thing about getting buy-in. There's something called the IKEA effect, and behavioral scientists have come up with this. And so guess why it's called IKEA effect? Because people place greater value on things that they've helped build. Anything you buy from IKEA, baby, you're going to have to build it.
Right.
So the buy-in comes from being a part of the process. And what's amazing about this is that you discover leadership traits in people that you didn't know they had.
Yeah.
So the collaborative effort takes longer. So you can't rush this at the end of the meeting. It needs to be something that's central to the gathering. And in the process, you better come in and listen. You have eye contact. You even jot things down that people say, to all of that. When somebody writes down something you said, that makes you feel respected.
Right. Yeah.
So sometimes people will test you with just like a little bit of something they're thinking. And then when they see your response, then they're going to give you more.
Yes.
So I guess the way I think about collaboration, it's a means to mine the gold.
Yes. Yeah, I like that.
So it's like, instead of how do I get people to accept my idea, how do we arrive at the best idea? And so when we go in with that as our goal, it can be so much fun. And you will have participation on a different scale. And so I can remember as a pastor, every year we did this huge women's conference. And so we would plan it a year out. You have to, when you have, 2,000 people coming to a conference. So, but I realized I needed to get everybody at the table, security, production. And so they would come in and I would run the meeting and I would put some things out there. And then I would specifically, if I thought this might affect this area, I would specifically ask this person, tell me what you think about this. Like security would tell me, if you put this many women in this situation, then we need to do this. And so, how much does this cost? Yes. Instead of just selling them on my amazing idea, I would put it out in pieces and then invite the feedback. Yeah. And so what happened over the course of time is everybody would show up to the meeting. I didn't have attrition because everybody felt valued and they were bringing value. Yes. That's the true thing. Yeah. So I think that let's move into that kind of thinking as far as, who this impacts. Who is my idea going to impact? Who are the executors? Who can represent those? And we're going to have true success when we approach it very strategically, very honestly, very transparently, and very respectfully.
I love it. Well, this has been so good. Thank you for your time. Thank you for taking this topic and really breaking it down for us today. Well, ladies, if you haven't had the opportunity to get into community, what are you waiting for? Head over to thrivetoday.com and learn more. We have so much content at your fingertips on Thrive Today. So become a member and join us We are all about women who lead and believe. You will be coached, challenged, and championed. So we can't wait to talk to you. Join us over there. Don't forget to thrive. We'll see you next time.